China just ordered 1,000 jets from its own aircraft company. That's more planes than Southwest, United, and American Airlines own combined. And get this, they're planning to crank out 200 of these every single year by 2029. So here's the $320 billion question that's got Boeing and Airbus executives reaching for their antacids. Is China's COMAC about to blow up the cozy little club that's been running aviation for the past 3 decades? Number 5. The Challenger enters the ring. Look, every time you step on a plane right now, there's a 90% chance you're flying Boeing or Airbus. These two basically own the sky. They've got waiting lists longer than the line at the DMV. We're talking 15,000 planes on backorder. It's like trying to get a PlayStation 5 during Christmas 2020, except each one costs $100 million. But China's done playing customer. They want to be the dealer. Enter COMAC, or Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China. Yeah, not the catchiest name, but they mean business. They've got 3 horses in the race. First up is the C909, used to be called the ARJ-21. This little guy seats about 90 people. Perfect for those milk run flights from Dallas to Oklahoma City or Seattle to Portland. They've actually delivered 170 of these puppies, and here's the kicker, they work pretty decent. We're talking 97% reliability. Now, before you get impressed, let me put this into perspective. When Delta says a plane has 97% reliability, that means 3 out of every 100 flights might have issues. Boeing and Airbus, they hit 99%. That extra 2% is the difference between making your connection and sleeping in the airport. The real showstopper is the C919. This bad boy goes head-to-head with the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320. You know, the planes you take from New York to Miami or LA to Vegas. Seats between 160 and 190 people, depending on how much the airline wants to squeeze you in there. China Eastern started flying paying customers in late 2023, which sounds impressive until you realize that by June 2025, there were only 20 of these birds actually earning money. Here's where it gets juicy. COMAC promised they'd deliver 50 planes in 2025. By July, they'd managed 5. That's like promising to lose 50 pounds and only dropping 5. Not exactly confidence-inspiring. But somehow they've got over 1,000 orders on the books. Sure, most are from Chinese airlines that probably didn't have much choice, but check this out. Gallop Air from Brunei wants in. Some Brazilian airline called Total Linhas Aéreas is sniffing around. Why? Because if you call Boeing or Airbus today for a new plane, they'll laugh and tell you to get in line behind everyone else. We're talking 2030 delivery dates. COMAC is saying that they can get you flying sooner. Then there's the C929, their moonshot wide body for those long hauls from LA to Shanghai. Right now it exists mostly in PowerPoint presentations and computer simulations. They swear they'll start bending metal in 2027, but aviation analysts are betting on 2032 before anyone's sipping champagne in first class on this thing. Number 4. Reality check. Chinese style. Let me paint you a picture of why China thinks they can pull this off. Their domestic aviation market is absolutely bonkers. We're talking 700 million passengers in 2024. That's like flying the entire population of the US twice, plus throwing in Canada for good measure. During Chinese New Year alone, 90 million people took to the skies in 7 weeks. That's more than the number of people that fly during the entire US holiday season. Airbus ran the numbers and figures China needs 11,000 new planes by 2043. That's 1 out of every 5 aircraft that will be built worldwide. So COMAC's math is simple. Capture just 30% of our home turf and boom, we're selling 2,500 planes without ever leaving China. No need to kiss up the foreign regulators or deal with pesky international competition. The Chinese government is bankrolling this entire operation like a tech bro funding his nephew's startup. State money means COMAC can bleed cash for years while they figure things out. Boeing has shareholders breathing down their neck every quarter. COMAC has bureaucrats who think in 5-year plans. But here's where the record scratches. You can't just build a plane and start flying it to Paris. International aviation has more red tape than a government office. It's like trying to practice medicine with a degree from the University of YouTube. Doesn't matter how good you think you are, nobody's letting you near patients without the proper credentials. EASA, basically Europe's FAA, took one look at the C919 and said, yeah, we're going to need 3 to 6 years just to check your homework. Best case scenario, you might see a C919 at Charles de Gaulle in 2028. Smart money says 2031. And the FAA? COMAC isn't even knocking on that door yet. They know that's a conversation for another decade. Without these golden tickets, the C919 is like a really expensive bird that can only fly around its own backyard. Sure, some countries that play nice with China will let them in. We're talking places like Lagos, Cambodia, maybe some African nations looking for cheap deals. But London, New York, Tokyo? Forget about it. Number 3. The Made in China problem. Alright, here's where this gets embarrassing for China. Remember when your parents bought you that gaming computer that turned out to be a Dell with a fancy sticker? The C919 is kind of like that. The engines? Made by CFM International, that's General Electric and some French company called Safran. The auxiliary power units, that's the thing that keeps the lights on when the main engines are off. Honeywell, American as apple pie. Flight controls? Collins Aerospace, based in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Landing gear? Some German outfit called Liebherr. The house of cards almost collapsed in May 2025. The US government decided to play hardball and froze export licenses for all of these parts. Imagine Tesla trying to build cars but someone just cut off their battery supply. COMAC had planes sitting in hangars like expensive paperweights because Uncle Sam said no engines for you. They got the licenses back in July after some closed-door dealing, but message received. Your aviation independence is about as real as a $3 bill when you need American engines to make it work. COMAC's cooking up their own engine, the CJ1000A. They've been testing this thing since forever, and optimists say it might be ready by 2030. But here's the thing about jet engines. Airlines want to see millions of flight hours before they trust putting 200 souls 35,000 feet up with your tech. The LEAP engines Boeing and Airbus use? Those have been around the block. The CJ1000A has only been around the test stand. It's almost like asking someone to buy the first generation iPhone when everyone else is rocking the iPhone 15. Sure, it might work, but do you really want to be the guinea pig? Number 2. Where's the spare parts, bro? This is the part of the story where COMAC's inexperience really shows. See, when Southwest buys a 737, they're not just buying a plane, they're buying into a system. It's like the difference between owning a Honda Civic and some boutique supercar. The Civic breaks down, there's a dealer every 10 miles. The supercar needs a special bolt? Good luck. Boeing and Airbus have spent 50 years building what amounts to aviation's version of AutoZone. Plane breaks down in Mumbai? There's parts 30 minutes away. Need a mechanic in Sao Paulo? Got a whole crew certified and ready. Pilot training in Dubai? There's a simulator center right there. A study from March 2025 mapped out parts availability in Southeast Asia. Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, all stocked up with A320 and 737 parts like a prepper's basement. C919 parts? Crickets. COMAC said they'll FedEx you whatever you need from Shanghai in 24 hours. That's cute, but when you're losing 50 grand for every hour your plane sits on the tarmac, overnight shipping just doesn't cut it. Now let's talk about money. The C919 started at $99 million, which sounds like a lot until you realize that's actually pretty close to what Boeing and Airbus charge for similar planes. Recent deals pushed it up to $108 million. But here's China's ace card. Financing that would make a used car salesman jealous. The China Development Bank will basically give you a plane for 20% down and cover the rest over 12 years at interest rates that make your mortgage look like loan shark territory. When you do the math, that sweet financing deal can knock 15 to 20% off the real cost. Suddenly, that Brazilian airline that's been flying 20-year-old hand-me-downs is really interesting. Number 1. The chess game nobody's talking about. Look, this stopped being about airplanes the minute it started. This is geopolitics with wings. Every time a country orders planes now, they're picking sides. Buy Boeing, you're Team America. Go with Airbus, that's a vote for Europe. Choose COMAC, you just slid into China's DMs. Boeing and Airbus see the writing on the wall. That's why Airbus is literally building planes inside China. They've got a factory in Tianjin cranking out A321s, and they're building another one. Boeing's got their own setup in Zhejiang, putting together 737s. It's like Coke and Pepsi opening up bottling plants in your backyard when some local brand starts getting too popular. Meanwhile, the tech race isn't slowing down. Airbus just certified this thing called the A321XLR that can fly 4,700 nautical miles. That's New York to Athens non-stop in a single-aisle plane. Boeing's working on hydrogen-powered jets for the 2030s because apparently regular fuel isn't sci-fi enough anymore. COMAC? They're still trying to match what Boeing and Airbus were doing when Obama was president. Here's my prediction, and I'm being generous. By 2030, COMAC will hit 120 planes per year, not the 200 they're promising. They'll own maybe a quarter of China's market because the government will make sure of it. In places like Indonesia, Thailand, maybe some African countries, they'll grab 3%. In the US and Europe, you've got better odds of seeing a unicorn. That's not exactly crushing Boeing and Airbus. It's more like being the annoying third wheel that makes date nights complicated. Yeah, the too big will feel it. They'll have to sharpen their pencils on pricing, especially in markets where every dollar counts. An airline in Nigeria that used to buy used 737s might take a hard look at the shiny new C919 with Chinese financing. But let's be real. Boeing and Airbus have 15,000 planes on order. They've got support networks that make Amazon logistics look amateur. They've got technology that COMAC won't match for at least a decade. And most importantly, they've got trust. When you're responsible for flying 300 people across an ocean, trust beats price every time. The wild card is politics. One major US-China dust-up and those American engines stop flowing to COMAC again. China knows this, which is why they're scrambling to build Chinese versions of everything. But replacing every Western component with a homegrown alternative? That's not a project. That's a prayer. So will COMAC crush Boeing and Airbus? Not a chance. But they will end the party where two companies had the whole dance floor to themselves. For the first time since Lockheed quit building passenger planes, the duopoly faces a competitor with infinite government money and a captive market bigger than Europe and America combined. What does this mean for you? Competition is coming to aviation. Real competition. Airlines will have options, which means better prices and maybe, just maybe, they'll stop shrinking your seat to save a buck. The days of Boeing and Airbus calling all the shots are numbered. We're entering a world where every plane order is a political statement, where technology and geopolitics dance together at 30,000 feet.